A single black mother just did something that makes no sense. $11 in her bank account, 2 hungry kids at home, a broken heater in her apartment, and a winter night so cold the city issued a survival warning. She saw him, a white man slumped on a bench, lips turning gray, shaking like his body was giving up. She didn't think. She unzipped her only coat and draped it over his shoulders.
Here. Stay with me, okay?
He looked up at her, confused,
Stay
barely
with me.
conscious.
You're gonna be all right. I got you.
That one decision should have broken her. Instead, it changed her life forever. Because the man she just saved, he wasn't just some stranger. And what he did 3 days later left her standing in the middle of a room, shaking, unable to speak. But to understand why, we need to go back to the beginning. Cora Finley was 34 years old, single mother of 2, and every single day of her life ran on a system she built with her own hands because nobody else was going to build it for her. 5:30 a.m., alarm goes off. No snooze, never snooze. Snooze means late. Late means trouble. She swung her legs off the bed, and her feet hit cold floor. The heater had been out since November. She'd called the landlord 4 times, left messages, sent texts, nothing, just silence and a cold apartment. First stop, the kitchen. She packed 2 lunches side by side on the counter. Peanut butter sandwiches, apple slices she'd cut the night before, a juice box each. She wrote a little note on a napkin for Jalen. "You're brilliant. Don't forget it. Mom." She'd been doing that since he was 6. He pretended it embarrassed him. She knew he kept every single one. Then, Nyla's hair. 5 years old and already had opinions about everything, especially her braids. Cora sat her on a kitchen stool, fingers moving fast, twisting and pulling, while Nyla hummed some song she'd learned at daycare. In Nyla's lap sat a stuffed rabbit, one ear missing, fur matted from years of love. That rabbit went everywhere. Nyla called him Captain. "Mama, Captain's cold," Nyla said. "I know, baby. Mama's cold, too." She layered both kids in extra shirts under their school clothes. Jalen noticed. He always noticed. "The heater's still broken?" he asked. "It's getting fixed soon. You said that last week. And I'll say it again next week if I have to. Put your shoes on." That was Cora. No complaints, no self-pity, just forward. Always forward. She dropped the kids at school by 7:45, kissed them both at the gate, and walked 3 blocks to catch the Route 9 bus downtown. The bus dropped her in front of a building that looked like it belonged in a different world. Glass and steel, polished marble lobby. The kind of place where people wore suits that cost more than her rent. Cora worked here as a night shift janitor, but on days when they were short-staffed, she pulled doubles, morning prep and night cleanup. Today was one of those days. She changed into her uniform in the basement locker room. Gray polo, gray pants, name badge clipped to her chest. She grabbed her mop and cart and headed upstairs. The lobby was already buzzing. Men and women in tailored coats, tapping on phones, carrying coffee cups that cost $6 each. Nobody looked at Cora. She was furniture. She was wallpaper. She was the woman with the mop who existed somewhere below their line of sight. Her supervisor, Derek Shaw, found her within 10 minutes, clipboard in hand, frown already loaded. "Finley, you clocked in at 8:02 yesterday." "The bus was late, Mr. Shaw." "The bus is always late. That's your problem, not mine. One more write-up and we're having a different conversation." He walked away before she could respond. She stood there, mop in hand, jaw tight. Then she exhaled, slow, controlled, and went back to work. She mopped the lobby floor, cleaned the restrooms on the first 3 levels, emptied trash bins in the break rooms. And every single shift, every single night, she walked past the same hallway near the elevator bank. The hallway had a wall of framed portraits, executive portraits, men and women in dark suits, professional smiles, gold nameplates underneath. The company's founders, board members, leadership team. Cora had walked past that wall hundreds of times. She never stopped. She never looked. Why would she? Those faces had nothing to do with her life. Shift ended at 4. She caught the bus back uptown, picked up the kids from Miss Brenda's apartment. Brenda Odom, 3 doors down, unofficial grandmother to half the building. "You look thin, girl," Brenda said at the door. Her eyes dropped to Cora's coat, elbows worn through, zipper half broken. "Take Raymond's old parka. It's just sitting in the closet." "I'm fine, Miss Brenda. Save it for someone who really needs it." Brenda gave her a look. The kind of look that said, "You are someone who really needs it." But she didn't push. Back in the apartment, Cora heated leftover soup on the stove. They ate together at the small kitchen table. Cora, Jalen, Nyla, and Captain, the one-eared rabbit propped up in his own chair because Nyla insisted. After dinner, Cora sat with Jalen and his dream journal, a spiral notebook filled with sketches and ideas, inventions he wanted to build someday. Tonight's page? A solar-powered backpack charger. He'd drawn it in colored pencil, labeled every part. "You think it could actually work, Mom?" "I think it's brilliant." "But like, for real?" She put her hand on his. "Jalen, I have never lied to you about your brain. If you drew it, you can build it." He smiled, small but real. She tucked both kids in, read Nyla a chapter from a library book, kissed them goodnight. Then she sat alone in the kitchen. 4 days until payday. 3 days until Jalen's science fair. She'd promised him poster board and batteries. She had $11. Poster board was $8. Batteries were $5. The math didn't work. It never worked. The radiator clanged once, loud, metallic, hopeful, then went silent. Cora pulled every spare blanket from the closet, draped them over the kids, kept the thinnest one for herself. She sat on the edge of her bed in the dark, hands folded, eyes closed. "Just get us to Friday," she whispered. "Just get us to Friday." The next morning, Cora woke up to her phone buzzing. A weather alert. She squinted at the screen, still half asleep. Winter storm warning. Dangerously low wind chills expected tonight. Temperatures dropping to -8 degrees. Limit outdoor exposure. Check on elderly neighbors. She read it twice. Then she looked at the radiator in the corner. Dead. Still dead. She got the kids dressed in every warm layer she could find. 2 shirts each, sweaters on top. Jalen's jacket was too small. The sleeves stopped above his wrists, but it was all they had. Nyla clutched Captain the Rabbit tight against her chest, like he was the one who needed protecting. "Mama, is it gonna snow?" Nyla asked. "Maybe, baby." "Can we build a snowman?" "We'll see." Cora dropped them at school, then stood at the bus stop and called the landlord one more time. This time, someone actually picked up. "Mr. Hoffman, this is Cora Finley in 4B. The heater's been out since November. There's a winter storm tonight. I have 2 children in that apartment." A pause. Then, "I'll send someone when I can." "When you can? Sir, it's going to be -8 tonight. My kids—" "I said I'll send someone. I got other tenants too, Miss Finley." He hung up. Cora stared at her phone. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw it. Instead, she put it back in her pocket and got on the bus. At work, Derek Shaw wrote her up again, this time for a scuff mark on the 3rd-floor hallway she'd supposedly missed. She signed the form without a word. What was she going to do? Argue? She needed this job. She needed every single hour. By 3 o'clock, the sky had turned the color of iron. The wind picked up. You could hear it pressing against the office windows like something trying to get in. Cora clocked out and took the bus uptown. She picked up the kids from Brenda's, brought them home, and piled every blanket in the apartment onto Jalen's bed. All 3 of them would sleep there tonight. Body heat. That was the plan. Then her phone rang. Pastor Gerald Davis. "Cora, I'm sorry to call like this. I know you're off today. But we're opening emergency warming beds at the church tonight, and I'm short 3 volunteers. Diane's got the flu. Tommy's car won't start. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Cora closed her eyes. She was exhausted. Her body ached. Her kids needed her here. But she thought about the people who would show up at that church tonight. The ones sleeping on benches. The ones with nowhere to go. Somebody's mother. Somebody's father. Somebody who didn't have a Brenda 3 doors down. "What time?" she asked. 6 to 10. I'll have someone drive you to your bus stop after. She looked at Jalen. He was reading to Nyla on the bed, both of them buried under blankets. Captain the Rabbit tucked between them. "I'll be there," she said. She walked the kids back to Brenda's apartment. Brenda didn't ask questions. She just opened the door, pulled the kids inside, and handed Cora a thermos of hot coffee. "You're crazy, girl," Brenda said, but she said it with love. Cora took the bus to the church. For 4 hours, she ladled soup, handed out blankets, made up cots, and talked to people who hadn't had a real conversation in days. An old man told her about his dog that died last winter. A young woman showed her a picture of a baby she was trying to get custody of. A teenager sat in the corner and didn't say a word, but ate 3 bowls of soup and fell asleep in a chair. At 10 o'clock, Pastor Davis thanked her. One of the other volunteers offered to drive her to her bus stop. She said goodnight and climbed out of the car at the Route 9 stop on the edge of downtown. The wind hit her like a wall. She checked the transit app. Bus delayed. 25 minutes. 25 minutes in this cold. She could feel it already. The wind cutting through her thin coat like it wasn't even there. Her fingers went numb in seconds. She shoved her hands under her arms and paced back and forth on the sidewalk. The street was empty. No cars, no people. Just the buzz of a dying streetlight and the sound of wind pushing trash across the pavement. And then she saw him. An older white man, sitting on the bus stop bench. No coat, no hat, dress shirt half untucked and whipping in the wind. His head was down. His shoulders were shaking. She stopped pacing. His lips were grayish blue. His hands trembled in his lap. He was mumbling something she couldn't hear over the wind. She looked at his shoes. Leather Oxfords. Expensive. Completely wrong for this weather. And on his wrist, a watch. Heavy, gold-rimmed, catching the light from the street lamp. Something about him didn't add up. This man wasn't homeless. He wasn't dressed for the street. He looked like someone who had walked out of a warm room and forgotten to come back. His eyes drifted up to hers, unfocused, lost. Cora's heart dropped into her stomach. Every part of Cora's brain told her to stay where she was. Stay warm. Mind your business. The bus is coming. You've done enough today. But her body was already moving. She walked toward the bench, slowly, carefully, the way you approach someone who might break if you move too fast. "Sir?" she said. "Sir, are you okay?" He didn't answer, just kept shaking. His jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscles in his neck straining. She knelt down in front of him, put herself in his line of sight. "Hey, look at me. Can you look at me?" His eyes found hers. Blue eyes, watery, confused. Like a man who had just woken up and didn't know where he was. "Where's your coat?" she asked. He blinked, looked down at himself like he was noticing for the first time. I was at the dinner. The car was supposed to come." "What car? Do you have someone you can call?" He patted his pockets. Slow, clumsy. No phone, no wallet, nothing. "It's gone," he whispered. "Everything's gone." Cora looked up and down the street. Empty. Not a single person. Not a single car. The street light above them flickered twice and buzzed. She looked at the man again. His lips were getting worse. The grayish blue was spreading. His whole body shook in waves now. Not small shivers, but deep, violent tremors that rocked the bench. She knew what hypothermia looked like. She'd seen it at the shelter. She'd seen what happened when it went too far. She didn't have time to think. She didn't have time to weigh the options. She didn't have time to calculate what this would cost her. She unzipped her coat, her only coat. She pulled it off her shoulders, and the cold hit her like a punch to the chest. Instant. Brutal. The wind went straight through her sweater and grabbed her ribs. She draped the coat over the man's shoulders, tucked it around him, zipped it up to his chin. "Here," she said. "Stay with me, okay?" He looked at her. Really looked at her. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "What's your name?" she asked. "Edmund," he said, barely a whisper. "I'm Cora. The bus is coming, Edmund. We're going to get you warm." She sat beside him on the bench, pressed her shoulder against his to share what little body heat she had left. She rubbed his arms through the coat, fast, firm strokes, trying to push warmth into him through friction. "Stay with me, Edmund. Keep talking. Tell me something. Tell me anything." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice so thin it almost disappeared in the wind, "My Helen, she's gone." Cora's hands stopped moving, just for a second. "Helen?" she said softly. "My wife, 41 years. She's gone. 3 months now." His eyes filled. He wasn't shaking from the cold anymore. Or maybe he was. Maybe it was both. Maybe the cold and the grief had become the same thing, and he couldn't tell the difference. Cora understood something in that moment. This man didn't just wander out into the cold by accident. He drifted out, the way people do when the loss is too heavy to carry inside 4 walls. When staying still feels like drowning. When walking into the freezing dark feels easier than sitting alone in a warm room with an empty chair across from yours. She didn't say, "It'll be okay." She didn't say, "I'm sorry for your loss." She just took his hand, held it tight, and stayed. The wind screamed around them. Cora's teeth chattered so hard she could feel it in her skull. Her fingers were white, her ears burned. Every breath felt like swallowing glass. She pulled out her phone. 3% battery. She dialed 911. "I'm at the Route 9 bus stop, corner of Ashland and 12th. There's an older man here, no coat, showing signs of hypothermia. His lips are blue. He's disoriented. Please send someone." "Ma'am, we have an ambulance in the area. Estimated arrival 12 minutes. 12 minutes. She looked at Edmund. 12 minutes was a long time. Too long if his body decided to give up. She shifted positions, stood up and moved to the side of the bench closest to the wind. She planted her feet and blocked it with her own body. She became his wall. Her whole body screamed at her to stop. Her muscles locked, her vision blurred at the edges. But she stayed. She flagged a passing car. It didn't stop. Another one. Same thing. Headlights sweeping past like they didn't see her, or didn't want to. "Edmund, stay with me. Talk to me. What did Helen look like?" A pause. Then, "Red hair. She had red hair. Even at 60, she wouldn't let it go gray. Dyed it every month. I used to tell her she looked like a sunset." Cora smiled through her chattering teeth. "She sounds beautiful." She was. She was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. "Then you hold on to that, okay? You hold on to that picture of her. Because she wouldn't want you sitting out here like this. You know that, right?" Edmund closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek and froze halfway. "I know," he whispered. Red and white lights appeared at the end of the street. The ambulance. Cora almost collapsed with relief. 2 EMTs jumped out. They moved fast. Thermal blankets, vitals check, oxygen. One of them looked at Cora. "Are you family?" "No, just someone waiting for the bus." The EMT paused, looked at Cora standing there in nothing but a thin sweater, arms wrapped around herself, shivering so hard she could barely stand. Then looked at Edmund wrapped in her coat. He didn't say anything, but his face said everything. They loaded Edmund onto the stretcher. As they lifted him, he reached out and grabbed Cora's hand. "Your coat," he said. She shook her head. "Keep it. You need it more than me tonight." He stared at her, long and hard, like he was trying to memorize her face. Every line, every detail. Like he knew, even through the fog of cold and grief, that he was looking at someone he would never forget. The ambulance doors closed, the lights spun, and then it was gone. Cora stood alone at the bus stop. No coat, no gloves, nothing between her and the coldest night in 15 years except a thin cotton sweater. One of the EMTs had left her an emergency thermal blanket, the shiny silver kind that crinkles when you move. She wrapped it around her shoulders. It was barely enough. The bus finally came, 28 minutes late. Cora climbed the steps, emergency blanket wrapped around her like a silver cape. The driver looked at her but said nothing. She sat in the back row, leaned her head against the cold window, closed her eyes. She thought about Jalen's science fair, the poster board, the batteries, the $11 that still wasn't enough. She thought about Edmund's eyes when he said, "My Helen." She thought about red hair and sunsets and 41 years of love. She whispered to herself, so quiet nobody could hear, "Lord, just get us to Friday." All right, hold on. I gotta pause right here, because this woman, she literally had nothing. $11, no heat, 2 kids at home, and she still gave her only coat to a stranger. Like, bro, I don't even know if I could do that. That's not normal kindness. That's something else. The next morning, Cora woke up sore. Her shoulders ached. Her throat was raw. Her hands still felt stiff from the cold, like they hadn't fully thawed overnight. She got up anyway. Same routine, same clock, same cold apartment. She opened the closet and stared at the empty hook where her coat used to hang. For a second, she just stood there. Then she pulled on 2 sweaters, layered one over the other, and kept moving. Jalen saw her at breakfast. "Where's your coat, Mom?" "At the cleaners." "We don't go to the cleaners." "Jalen, eat your sandwich." He looked at her the way he always did when he knew she was lying. But he didn't push. He was 10. But sometimes he carried himself like he was 40. She dropped the kids at school, took the bus downtown, and worked her shift. Nobody noticed she didn't have a coat. Nobody noticed anything about Cora. That was the whole point of being invisible, until you needed someone to see you. That night, she picked up the kids from Brenda's. Brenda took one look at her, 2 sweaters, no coat, red nose, chapped lips, and disappeared into the hallway closet. She came back with Raymond's old parka, brown corduroy, oversized, smelled like mothballs and old cologne. "Take it," Brenda said, not a question this time. Cora hesitated. "Mama, take it," Nyla said from behind her. "You're turning blue." Cora took the parka. She put it on. It swallowed her whole. Nyla giggled. Even Jalen cracked a smile. "Thank you, Miss Brenda." "Don't thank me. Just stop giving away your clothes to strangers in the middle of winter." Cora didn't explain. She didn't tell Brenda about Edmund. She didn't tell anyone. It wasn't a story to her. It wasn't something she did to feel good about herself or to earn something in return. It was just Tuesday. A man was freezing. She had a coat. That's all there was to it. Life went on. She mopped floors. She packed lunches. She counted days until payday. The math still didn't work. It never did. 3 days passed. On Saturday morning, Cora was at the soup kitchen, apron on, hair tied back, chopping onions for the lunch service while Pastor Davis prepped the dining room. The front door opened. A woman walked in, mid-40s, wool coat, the kind that costs more than Cora's rent. Hair pulled back neat, posture straight. She looked around the soup kitchen like she'd never been inside one before. She walked up to Pastor Davis. "Excuse me. I'm looking for a woman named Cora. Black woman, mid-30s. She may have been at the Route 9 bus stop last Tuesday night." Pastor Davis set down the folding chair he was carrying. He looked at the woman for a long moment, careful, protective. "May I ask who's looking for her?" "My name is Lorraine Calloway Nash. My father was the man she helped that night. He's recovering now, and she's all he talks about. I'd like to thank her personally." Pastor Davis nodded slowly. I'll pass the message along, but I can't give out her information. I'm sure you understand. Lorraine paused. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Of course. Please give her this. She can reach me whenever she's comfortable. Pastor Davis took the card. Lorraine left. That afternoon, Pastor Davis found Cora in the kitchen. Someone came looking for you today, he said. A woman. Said her father was the man you helped Tuesday night. Cora kept chopping. Okay. She seemed sincere, Cora. Left her card. He held it out. Cora wiped her hands on her apron and took it. She glanced at it. White card, clean font, gold lettering. Lorraine Calloway Nash, VP of Operations, Calloway and Breck Holdings. She read it once, then slipped it into her apron pocket. I didn't do anything special, Pastor. I just did what anyone would do. Pastor Davis leaned against the counter, crossed his arms, looked at her with those steady, quiet eyes. That's the thing, Cora. Not everyone would. That night, Cora went to work like she always did. Gray polo, gray pants, mop and cart. The marble lobby gleaming under fluorescent lights. She mopped the first floor, cleaned the restrooms, emptied the trash in the break rooms. Same routine she'd done 1,000 times. Then she reached the hallway near the elevator bank, the one with the portraits. She'd walk past this wall every single shift for 3 years. Never stopped, never cared. Faces behind glass, names she didn't know. People who lived in a world that had nothing to do with hers. But tonight, something made her slow down. Maybe it was the business card sitting in her apron pocket. Maybe it was the name, Calloway, still rattling around in her head. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. She stopped in front of the third portrait from the left. A man in a dark suit, silver hair combed back, strong jaw, professional smile. The kind of photograph taken in a studio with perfect lighting and an expensive backdrop. She read the nameplate underneath. Edmund Calloway, founder and chairman. Calloway and Breck Holdings. Cora's mop handle slipped in her grip. A streak of dirty water trailed across the marble floor. She stared at the portrait. Then she looked away. Then she looked back. The face was different. Younger in the photo, more composed, more polished. But the eyes were the same. Blue, deep set. The same eyes that had looked up at her from that bench, confused and broken and barely alive. She reached into her apron, pulled out Lorraine's business card, held it next to the portrait. Calloway and Breck Holdings. Same name, same company, same logo in the corner. Her hand was trembling. She pulled out her phone, typed Calloway and Breck Holdings into the search bar. The results loaded slow on her cracked screen. Calloway and Breck Holdings, one of the region's largest commercial real estate and community development firms. Founded in 1986 by Edmund Calloway, portfolio valued at an estimated $340 million. She scrolled down. Edmund Calloway recently stepped back from public life following the death of his wife of 41 years, Helen Calloway. Helen. My Helen. She's gone. His voice came back to her, thin, broken, almost swallowed by the wind. She put her phone away, picked up the mop, wrung it out over the bucket. She stared at the portrait one more time. The man in the frame smiled back at her, confident, powerful, untouchable. Nothing like the man she'd held together on a frozen bench 3 nights ago. Cora went back to work, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. 2 days passed. Cora didn't call the number on the business card. She didn't tell anyone what she'd found. She just kept working, kept mopping, kept walking past that portrait every night and trying not to look at it. She told herself it didn't matter. She helped a man. He was okay now. That was the end of it. Whatever world Edmund Calloway lived in, the world of $340 million portfolios and corner offices and studio portraits on marble walls, that wasn't her world. It never would be. On Monday evening, She was sitting at the kitchen table helping Jalen glue planets onto a foam board for his science project. Nyla was on the floor, making Captain the Rabbit fly through the air like a spaceship. The apartment was cold. The parka Brenda gave her hung on the door hook. Everything was normal. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Cora stared at it. She never answered unknown numbers. It was always debt collectors, or scam calls, or the automated voice telling her she'd won a cruise she couldn't afford. It buzzed again. Something in her chest told her to pick up. She answered. "Hello? Is this Cora?" A man's voice, older, steady, but with a softness underneath, like someone choosing each word carefully. "Who's this?" A pause. "This is Edmund, from the bus stop." Cora's hand tightened around the phone. She stood up from the table, walked to the hallway, leaned against the wall. "Edmund," she said quietly, "I wasn't sure you'd answer. I asked Lorraine to find your number through the church. I hope that's all right." "It's fine." Her voice was calm, but her heart was pounding. "I wanted to call and say thank you, properly, not through a business card, not through a message, directly." Cora closed her eyes. "You don't need to thank me, Mr. Calloway." Silence on the other end. A long beat. "You know who I am," he said. "I saw your portrait, on the wall, in the building where I work." "You work in my building?" "I clean it, every night, 3rd floor down to the lobby." Another pause. Longer this time. She could hear him breathing. "Cora, I need to see you. Not on the phone, in person. There are things I want to say that I can't say like this." "Mr. Calloway, I don't want—" "I know," he said gently. "I know you don't want anything. Lorraine told me. Pastor Davis told me. Everyone who knows you told me the same thing, that you didn't do it for a reward. That's exactly why I need to see you." Cora pressed her forehead against the wall. She could hear Nyla laughing in the other room. Captain was apparently crash landing on the moon. "When?" she asked. "Thursday, 10 in the morning. I'll send a car." "You don't need to send a car. Just give me the address." He gave her the address. Not the glass tower downtown, a private brownstone across town, his personal office. She wrote it on the back of a grocery receipt and hung up. Thursday came. Cora put on her best blouse, the white one she wore to church, pressed with an iron she borrowed from Brenda. Her church shoes, a pair of earrings Jalen had given her for Mother's Day, small silver studs from the dollar store. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror for a long time. She took the bus across town, found the brownstone, red brick, black iron gate, ivy climbing the walls. A quiet street lined with old oak trees. It looked like money, but the kind that didn't need to shout about it. She rang the bell. A woman opened the door. Lorraine Calloway Nash. Same wool coat from the soup kitchen. Same sharp posture. But up close her eyes were her father's, blue and deep and searching. "Cora?" "Yes, ma'am." Lorraine studied her for a moment. Not cold. Not warm either. Careful. Measured. The look of a woman who had spent years protecting her father from people who wanted something from him. "Come in," she said. The inside of the brownstone was simple. Bookshelves, leather chairs, a fireplace. Photographs everywhere. Edmund and Helen. Wedding photos, travel photos, holiday photos. A lifetime framed on every surface. And then Edmund walked in. He looked different. Rested. Color back in his face, silver hair combed. He wore a navy sweater and pressed slacks. He stood straight. His eyes were clear. But the moment he saw Cora, those clear eyes filled with tears. He crossed the room, took both her hands in his, held them the way she'd held his on that bench. "Cora," he said. His voice cracked on her name. "Mr. Calloway." "Edmund, please." He didn't let go of her hands. "You saved my life," he said, "and I need you to hear that. Not just from the cold, from myself. The room went still. That night, I left Helen's memorial dinner. 3 months since she passed. I told my driver to give me a minute, and I walked. I didn't mean to go far, but grief doesn't follow directions. I just kept walking. And at some point, I stopped caring. I stopped caring if I made it back. His voice dropped to a whisper. And then you sat down next to me, and you held my hand, and you talked to me like I was a person, not a problem, not a situation, a person. You asked me about Helen. You told me to hold on to her. Do you remember that? Cora nodded. She couldn't speak. That's the moment I came back, Edmund said. That's the moment I decided to come back. Lorraine stood by the fireplace. Her arms had been crossed when Cora walked in. They weren't crossed anymore. Edmund let go of Cora's hands. He walked over to the desk by the window and picked up a folder. Brown leather. Thick. He set it on the table between them. Cora, I didn't bring you here to hand you a check and send you on your way. That's not what this is. She sat down in the chair across from him. Her hands were folded tight in her lap. Her church shoes pressed flat against the hardwood floor. I've spent the last week thinking about that night, Edmund said. And I've spent the last week thinking about something else. Something that's been bothering me for years. He opened the folder. Callaway and Breck builds properties, shopping centers, office parks, apartment complexes. We build in communities all over this region. But here's what I realized a long time ago and never did anything about. We build in communities, but we don't build with them. We don't listen. We don't ask. We show up with blueprints and budgets and we assume we know what people need. He looked at Cora. We don't. I don't. A man who can't survive one night alone on a bench has no business telling other people what they need. Cora didn't move. She barely breathed. I'm creating a new division at Callaway and Breck. Community outreach. Focused on affordable housing, neighborhood revitalization, real partnerships with real people in the places we build. And I need someone to lead it. He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. I'm offering you the position of Community Liaison Director. Full salary, full benefits, professional development support. You'd be the bridge between Callaway and Breck and the communities we've been ignoring. Cora looked down at the paper. She read the title. She read the salary. She read it again. Her vision blurred. Mr. Edmund, I don't have a college degree. I know. I've never worked in an office. I've never been in a meeting room. I've been cleaning offices and chopping vegetables for the last 10 years. I know that too. Then why me? Edmund leaned forward. His voice was quiet but firm. Because I've had 100 people with degrees and experience sit in that chair. Ivy League graduates, MBAs, people with resumes so long they need 2 pages. Not one of them gave a stranger their coat in a snowstorm. Not one of them sat with a broken old man in the freezing cold and asked him about his wife. He paused. I'm not hiring a resume, Cora. I'm hiring a person, and I've never met a better one. Cora pressed her lips together. She looked at the ceiling, then the floor, then back at Edmund. There's more, he said. He pulled a second document from the folder. Callaway and Breck has a foundation. We fund education programs across the county. I'm establishing a new scholarship, the Cora Finley Scholarship Fund, for children of single working parents. It will cover school supplies, tutoring, technology, and post-secondary education costs. He said it in front of her. Your children, Jalen and Nyla, will be the first recipients. Cora's hand went to her mouth. She pressed it there hard, like she was trying to hold something in. Her shoulders shook. And one more thing, Edmund said. His voice was gentle now, almost careful, like he knew the next words might be the ones that broke her. I made some calls this week. Callaway and Breck owns the building you live in. Did you know that? Cora shook her head, slowly. Your heating system will be repaired by Friday. I've spoken directly to the building manager. And your rent is frozen for 2 years while you transition into your new role. You won't pay $1 more than you're paying now." The room was quiet. The only sound was the tick of a clock on the mantel and the soft crackle of the fireplace. Cora sat there, tears running down her face, hands trembling in her lap. She opened her mouth to speak, and nothing came out. She tried again. Nothing. Lorraine moved from the fireplace. She walked across the room, pulled a tissue from the box on the desk, and held it out to Cora. Their eyes met. "Welcome to the team, Cora," Lorraine said. It was quiet. It was simple. But the way she said it, steady, sincere, without a trace of the caution she'd carried when Cora first walked in, it meant everything. Cora took the tissue, pressed it to her eyes, breathed in, breathed out. Then she looked at Edmund. "I'll do it," she said, "but I have one condition." Edmund raised his eyebrows. "The scholarship fund. It can't just be for my kids. It has to be open to every child in the neighborhood. Every kid whose mother is working 2 jobs and still can't make the math work. Every kid with a dream journal full of ideas and no money for poster board." Edmund smiled, the first real, full smile she'd seen from him. It reached his eyes. "Already planned for it," he said. Cora stood up. She shook his hand. Then she shook Lorraine's hand. Then she walked into the hallway, pulled out her phone, and called Brenda. She could barely get the words out. "Miss Brenda, something happened. Something just... I can't even..." Brenda screamed so loud the phone speaker crackled and distorted. In the background, Jalen's voice, "What's happening? What's wrong?" Brenda, "Nothing's wrong, baby. Your mama just changed the whole game." Cora laughed and cried at the same time. "Can I talk to Jalen?" A shuffle, then Jalen's voice, quiet, worried. "Mom, you okay?" "I'm okay, baby. I'm really okay. I have some news, really good news. I'll tell you everything when I get home." A pause. "But Jalen, get your dream journal out. We're gonna need it." 3 months later, Cora Finley walked into an office with her name on the door. It was small, a desk, a chair, a window that looked out onto a street she used to walk down with her mop cart. But it was hers, her name on a brass plate, her business cards in a holder on the desk. Cora Finley, Community Liaison Director, Callaway and Breck Holdings. She ran her thumb across the raised letters. Then she set a framed photo next to the card holder. Her, Jalen, and Nyla at Brenda's kitchen table. Nyla holding Captain, Jalen doing his quiet, serious smile. On her first day, she wore the old coat. Not the parka Brenda gave her, the original one, the one she'd draped over Edmund's shoulders that night at the bus stop. He'd had it cleaned, mended at the elbows, and returned to her in a box with a handwritten note. "This coat saved my life. I thought it should come home." She didn't need it anymore. She had a new one, a good one. But she wore it that first morning because she wanted to remember where she started. She wanted to carry that night with her into every room she walked into from now on. The job was hard. She didn't pretend it wasn't. The first month was meetings and conference calls and terminology she had to look up on her phone under the table. Words like stakeholder engagement and impact assessment and community asset mapping. She wrote everything down. She asked questions. She stayed late. But the part that came easy, the part that nobody could teach, was the people. Cora went into community meetings and she listened. Not the way executives listen, already forming their response before the other person finishes talking. She listened the way someone listens when they've lived the same story. Because she had. She took notes. She followed up. She remembered names. People trusted her because she didn't talk down to them. She didn't arrive with solutions. She arrived with questions. And then she fought for the answers inside boardrooms where nobody expected her to speak. One afternoon, she stepped into the elevator at the glass tower downtown, the same building where she used to mop floors. Derek Shaw was already inside, her old supervisor, clipboard still in hand, same frown. He looked at her. Blazer, badge, different floor, different name on the badge. He didn't say a word. Cora pressed the button for the 8th floor. The doors closed. She didn't say anything either. She didn't have to. 6 months after Cora started, the Cora Finley Scholarship Fund held its first ceremony at Pastor Davis's church. 12 children from the neighborhood sat in the front row. Each one received a backpack, not an empty one. Laptops, school supplies, notebooks, and a handwritten letter from Cora tucked inside. A local news crew came. A reporter asked Cora why she chose backpacks. She smiled. "Because I know what it feels like to send your kid to school and hope nobody notices they don't have what they need." That clip ran on the evening news. Then it ran again online. Then it kept running. Jalen was one of the 12. 2 months later, he took his solar-powered backpack charger to a regional science fair. He stood in front of a panel of judges and explained how it worked: the solar cells, the battery pack, the USB port. He'd built the prototype on the kitchen table with materials Cora could finally afford. He won second place. He held the ribbon in both hands and looked at Cora in the audience. She was already crying. The ripple kept spreading. Pastor Davis's soup kitchen received a major grant from the Callaway and Breck Foundation. New stoves, new refrigerators, extended hours, a dedicated family dining room with real tables and chairs instead of folding ones. Brenda Odom started a coat drive. She called it Cora's Closet. The first winter, they collected over 400 coats. Brenda stood in the church parking lot every Saturday, sorting sizes, handing them out personally. A local nonprofit featured Cora in their annual report. The headline? "She gave away her coat. The world gave her everything back." Edmund came to the soup kitchen's grand reopening. He didn't give a speech. He didn't stand behind a podium. He stood at the serving station next to Cora, ladle in hand, serving soup to the same people Cora used to serve alone. A photographer captured the moment. Edmund in an apron, laughing. Cora beside him, shaking her head like she still couldn't believe any of this was real. That photo became the most shared image in the city's community news that month. January again. 1 year later, same city, same winter. Same cold that crawls under your skin and makes you question why anyone lives here. But this time, things were different. Cora drove to work now, a used Honda Civic she'd bought with her own money, her own salary. The heater worked. The radio worked. Nyla had claimed the back seat as Captain the Rabbit's personal aircraft. On this night, Cora took a detour. She didn't have to. She wasn't running late. She just needed to see it. She pulled up to the Route 9 bus stop, corner of Ashland and 12th. The same spot where she'd sat with a stranger on the worst night of her life and given him the only thing she had. It didn't look the same anymore. Callaway and Breck had funded a warming station here. A heated bench with a small overhead shelter, an emergency call button mounted to the post, and a shelf, open, wooden, simple, stocked with donated gloves, hats, scarves, and hand warmers. Above the shelf, a small bronze plaque. "Take what you need, leave what you can," in memory of Helen Callaway. Cora stood in front of it. She touched the plaque with her fingertips, traced the letters of Helen's name. A woman she'd never met. A woman she felt like she knew, through Edmund's voice, through his tears, through the way he said her name like it was the only word that still meant anything. "You would have liked her, Helen," Cora whispered. "She raised a good man." She stood there for a moment, wind blowing, streetlight buzzing. The same sounds as that night, but warmer now. Everything was warmer now. She walked back to her car and opened the trunk. Inside was a coat, brand new, tags still on, navy blue, good zipper, warm lining. She'd picked it out that morning, paid full price. She folded it neatly and placed it on the heated bench, right next to the shelf of gloves and hats. Then she got back in her car. She was about to pull away when she saw her. A young woman walking toward the bus stop. Early 20s, thin jacket, a toddler on her hip, bundled in a blanket that wasn't thick enough. The young woman reached the bench. She saw the coat, looked around, looked left, looked right, like she was waiting for someone to tell her it wasn't really free. Nobody came. Nobody said a word. She picked it up, held it for a second, then slipped it on with one arm, the toddler balanced on the other. She pulled it tight, closed her eyes. Cora watched from the car. She didn't wave. She didn't roll down the window. She didn't need to. She started the engine and drove home. To a warm apartment, 2 healthy kids, a dream journal full of plans, and a life she built from a single act of kindness on the coldest night of the year. Real talk. This story hit different for me. Because Cora didn't have anything, like literally nothing, and she still gave. No hesitation, no agenda, just pure kindness. In a world full of people looking the other way, she didn't. And that's the kind of thing that restores your faith in people. So let me ask you something. Have you ever done something kind for a stranger? Something small that felt like nothing at the time, and it came back to you in a way you never expected? Drop it in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if this one moved you, if Cora's story made you feel something real, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it tonight. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you in the next story.